Am I overreacting for calling off my wedding after my fiancé got drunk, put on my wedding dress, and had an accident in it? This sounds completely ridiculous, but it really happened and I can't stop thinking about it. Some people are telling me I completely overreacted, and I'm starting to question myself. I'm 28 and was supposed to get married last weekend to my fiancé, Nick, who is 30. We've been together for 4 years. He's funny and a little impulsive, but I always thought he had good judgment. He drinks socially, but I've never seen him totally out of control until now. The night before our wedding, I stayed at home with my sister and 2 of my bridesmaids for a relaxed night. Nick went out with his groomsmen. I expected him to come home tipsy at most. At around 1:30 in the morning, he came home absolutely wasted. Slurring, stumbling, sweaty. I was brushing my teeth when I heard him banging around in the guest room. When I went to check, I saw him dragging my wedding dress out of the closet. I asked what he was doing, and he just laughed and said he wanted to see how it felt to be the bride. I told him to put it back and not to touch it, but he was not listening at all. Right in front of me, he stripped down completely and started putting on the dress. He could barely get it over his body and kept tripping over the train. I didn't know what to say. Then he dropped to the floor in the dress, still laughing. Then he went quiet, looked up at me with this panicked face, and said, "Oh no." A few seconds later, he had an accident. Diarrhea. It soaked through the back of the dress and onto the carpet. The smell was immediate and overwhelming. I stood there in shock while he started crying and tried to get out of the dress, which only made more of a mess. It was all over the fabric, the floor, and him. I told him to get in the shower and I left. I drove straight to my mom's house and didn't take any of his calls. The next morning, I called off the wedding. Since then, Nick has apologized over and over. He said he blacked out and barely remembers what happened. His family is furious with me and says I'm throwing away a great relationship over a drunken mistake. Some of my friends agree and think I should have postponed instead of canceling. Even my maid of honor said I might be letting emotions take over and that it wasn't unforgivable. But I feel like something broke that night. I didn't just feel disgusted. I felt disrespected. The dress wasn't just expensive, it was important to me. It symbolized something. I cannot unsee what happened. I can't laugh about it or move on like it's just one bad night. I don't know how to look at him the same way. Am I overreacting for calling off the wedding? Update. Hi again. First off, thank you to everyone who responded. I didn't expect the level of attention my post got, and honestly, reading the replies made me feel less alone. Some people told me I was right to call it off. Others said it was a terrible mistake, but not unforgivable. Both sides helped me see the situation more clearly. I spoke to Nick this morning. Not for closure, not for a big emotional talk, just to return some things and check in about logistics, since everything's been cancelled. But we ended up sitting down and talking for over an hour. He apologized again. Sincerely. He didn't try to defend himself or shift blame. He told me he didn't remember everything clearly but knows he came home wasted, saw the dress, and in his words, thought it would be funny or meaningful or something. He didn't mean to ruin the dress. He didn't mean to humiliate me. But he did. And he knows that. He said he's ashamed of what happened and of how out of control he let himself get. He also admitted this wasn't the first time his drinking led to something bad. He said this was a wake-up call and that he's going to stop drinking entirely. I didn't even know he had a problem. The thing is, I still care about him. We were supposed to get married. I didn't walk away from someone I didn't love. But something inside me cracked that night, and it hasn't healed. I don't know if it will. I know it sounds superficial to some people, but for me, it was a symbol. Of our future. Of the person I thought I was marrying. And watching him defile it in that state, whether on purpose or by accident, changed something. I've been trying to figure out if that one night should be the end of 4 years together. But it's not really just that one night, is it? It's what it revealed. About how he handles stress. About how far he let himself go. About how I felt standing in that room, watching someone I loved become almost unrecognizable. I haven't made a final decision yet. Technically, the wedding is still cancelled, but the relationship isn't officially over. We're on a kind of emotional pause, I guess. He says he wants to make things right. And maybe he will. Maybe with time, I'll want to try again. But right now, I still feel like I'm grieving something that ended. And I don't know if I'm ready to build it back from scratch. So I guess I'm now asking. Am I overreacting if I walk away from this completely?
Relevant comments. Commenter, not at all overreacting. This is not about the dress but what it meant to feel powerless as he did something stupid, thoughtless, and immature after drinking himself into a stupor, and the glimpse into your future you got that you couldn't gaslight yourself into ignoring because it ruined something so symbolic and expensive. Believe the symbolism. This is a red flag. Not that he's a bad person, but that this partnership might come with significant difficulty long term as he continues to cope with life stresses in immature ways that leave you always having to be the adult in the house. I've been in relationships where I've made excuses for every red flag. I've seen loved ones endure relationships with addicts hoping they'll change if they just pour enough love in. None of them realized there was a problem at first either, but it seems like your BF is admitting there is something to that theory. None of the aforementioned relationships had a happy ending, and most have been extremely, extremely bad in a way that seemed uncharacteristic for the partner when he finally hit his rock bottom. He may genuinely want to change, and you may be hopeful that could fix some things, but long-term a lot of people have trouble quitting substances when nothing of significance has changed for them, and they're still in a situation where they can see opportunities to drink or use and know they can without losing much. Comfort and stability are your enemies when fighting addiction, because they enable a reticence to change. I want to add, staying in a relationship where you feel like you have to be the adult and take steps to manage the other person's behavior gets extremely taxing and builds a lot of resentment very quickly. Think of this as something that tore off your rose-colored glasses and made you look at an ugliness you didn't want to see, held your eyes open to a version of your future you didn't anticipate. If you are absolutely 100% sure this is a one-time thing, it might be reparable, but I feel like if you're willing to lose all the money and effort sunk into planning a wedding and go through the ordeal of canceling, that seems like it implies a larger issue underneath, whether it's about the way he handles stress, his propensity to hurt you with little careless things, or how often you envision yourself cleaning up his messes or managing his behavior in your lives together. The cliché is true: when someone shows you who they are, believe them. I made excuses for everything my ex did that made my skin crawl, and when we finally broke up I was worried he might actually murder me for months. Even now, a few years later, I don't think that was crazy. I think he was more than capable of it, resented me, and I believe he tried to break into my apartment at one point about a month after the breakup. Obviously a different situation, but for years other people in our lives had tried to point out red flags to me, and he did things that definitely gave me a lot of pause, but I always opted to look for the best in him. In hindsight, I embellished and exaggerated some goodness that wasn't really there. I lost 5 years of my life to that relationship, and figuring out where to go from here has been incredibly difficult. I wish I had left the first time something he said or did gave me the sinking feeling of, this is my future, and I don't like it, rather than convincing myself I was overreacting and being unfair. Please learn from my mistakes. Commenter 2. I don't think it's an overreaction to want to walk away completely. And I also think that if there's any part of you that wants to salvage things, you need to walk away completely first. If you guys keep being close and talking and living together and all of those other things, neither of you will have a chance to move past this or heal or improve. People in general don't change if what they're doing works. And if he can keep you the way he is, he will slip back into drinking. But you also won't be able to change if you're still with him, and I think that's something that you need for yourself, is to be alone and to be independent for a while. I would suggest you guys taking a year or two apart and then revisiting and deciding if it's worth trying again.